10 years ago, I was given this. And I know it just looks like a bag of M&Ms. But if you zoom in and you read, it says, I miss you. It says, I'm proud of you. It says, I love you. And there's even a picture of me and someone else on these M&Ms. And you're probably guessing, oh, how sweet. An ex-boyfriend gave that to you. Oh, that's so kind. He really went out of his way. No. This was from my youth director when I was 17 years old, and he was like 23 years older than me. This was graduation present, one of many. I also got open when letters, like open on your graduation day and blah, 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 blah. And it's all very sweet. If it was a boyfriend, it'd be really sweet if that was from a boyfriend. But it wasn't. It's from an old man. An old-ass man now. So if anyone wants me to read some, I'd be happy to. Because I didn't realize all of this was bad until about a year ago. And I didn't realize the trauma. I didn't realize how hard it was going to be for me to love others, like, romantically, because of him. So, here's to growing, here's to healing, and here's to me holding on to these for the rest of my life until some type of change is made in church. I don't know where this is going. I have no plan. I have no script. I barely could get the mics to work. I want to elaborate on the true backstory of discovering, understanding, realizing that I was groomed by my youth director for many years as a child. I just felt very called to make a video reading one of his letters that he gave me. Here's a fun game for the class. I'm going to read you a letter from someone, and then at the end you have to tell me who you thought it was from. Okay, are you ready? Here we go. Danielle, you have no idea how excited I was to see you today. 2 exclamation points. I miss you so much. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 O's. I miss seeing you every Sunday and just hanging out where we would talk for hours and hours. Smiley face with 2 exclamation points, you know. You have no idea the impact you've had on me. Thank you always for being there and being this amazing, loving force that lifts me up and keeps me going. I can't imagine my life without you in it. 2 exclamation points. You brighten my world with your smile. You calm my world with your hugs. You fill my world with your laugh. You complete me with the love you give. Thank you for always being there and always being you. Beautiful, loving, amazing you. I am proud of who you are and where you are in life. Exclamation point. You are perfect, and you will always be perfect. Always be mine, because I truly, from the bottom of my heart, do not know what I would do without you. 2 exclamation points. Did you guess? If you guessed the youth director of my old church while I was 13 years old and he was 36, you would be right. Within like 2 to 3 weeks, he was fired. For those of you who asked why I kept them for, evidence. And like the proof that I wasn't crazy and that I didn't make this whole dynamic up. Just recently, I've been seeing some friends from my old church, and it is very interesting to have these conversations and these eye-opening revelations from all of us. Our youth director, the man in power, had a very big say in whether you were kicked out of youth group or not for pretty ridiculous things. If you wanted to have extracurricular activities and couldn't make a volunteer event at the church, you would be taken out of the leadership positions. And like, to begin with, why were there leadership positions in a church? Like, why were there hierarchies within the youth group? There was this like clique that started to form within that group, and you became a valuable part of that community. And when you're innocent and vulnerable and a child and you want community, you fall into these types of things. Middle school, I was relentlessly bullied. Like every single day of my life, I was bullied. I would go home and get cyberbullied. Threats of like getting my ass beat the next day. Worse threats were made. So I kind of lived in a panic state all of the time and didn't realize that that's what I was doing. I was just always called sensitive or dramatic or annoying or any of the words from people who thought my emotions were too much for the time. So I was just really searching for a community that like saw me And like, aren't we all searching for that? I think so. When I had stepped into a few other churches before that, and every church before the one that I ended up at for like 6 years, all the other churches, like, they were too cliquey immediately. They were just like not, there was no way. They just did not include me when I walked in the door. It wasn't like, oh, hi, what's your name? It was just kind of like, okay, you sit over there. And like, that's how it was. It's just how it felt. And then having to go to school and be bullied and not have friends, like, I was just like, I really, really, really desperately want a community. I went with my friend whose mom worked at the church at the time. I would go after school with her to wait for my mom to pick me up. That's where I met what's his name. And from there, it's all sort of blurry because I just got so into going to that church and so into being a part of that community, because I swear the first time I walked in the door of that youth group, I felt welcome. There were so many youth group members who immediately like were there, and they were so attentive to the new people and to the newcomers and like welcoming people, which is a very big thing for me. I think half the thing about being bullied was just the exile of like, we don't want to talk to her. And that was really sad. It really sucked. Going into youth group, immediately being a part of a family and a part of a community like that felt really great. Now in hindsight, I understand why, because there was a leadership group there whose whole responsibility was to make people feel super welcome, because they were pretty much threatened to do so. To be a part of the leadership team, you had to be at church every week. So I started going to church every week because I really wanted to be on the leadership team, because again, when I walked in, I felt that sense of community, and I wanted to give that to other people. After those people who welcomed me in graduated, like, I wanted to take their place and be the leaders. And I mean, that's what I did. I'm just going to say that. That is what I did. And I'm very proud of that, because removing him, the community that I had there was the greatest community I've ever had in my life. It was authentic. It was real. I felt in my power, like where I was supposed to be, helping, guiding, leading others. Like, I've just always felt called to be that person to others. It's just a deep desire of mine to help people. Joined the youth group, became really close with everybody. That became my big community, my family. Every Sunday, I would spend literally all day there. So great. And in some part of that, me and the youth director became very close. And I don't really know how. And that's kind of where the whole grooming situation comes in, because it's confusing. I did consider him my best friend at some point, but I'm like, now it all is so like, did I do that because I just wanted to be a part of the community? Did I do it because I actually liked hanging out with this person? Did I do it because, like, it just is all very confusing. And seeing all the comments on that viral video and people being like, you asked for this, you're all over him, you were hugging him. I'm like, yeah, because that's who I was. I don't know. It's just frustrating to feel that people sit there and judge teenagers who don't know things because their brains are not developed. Long story short with that, we got really close. He would come to the girls' retreat. He'd be the only man there. There were a few times where, like, I would be alone in a room with him and, like, nobody cared, you know? And I think what happened was everything that, like, hit me all at once. I was talking to my therapist, and she said, like, well, you know, if he was a soccer coach, people probably wouldn't have been so whatever about you hanging out with him. And then I was like, you know what? That's a valid point. Like, why is it that this random man just had all this power and trust because the word of God was, like, above him, you know? That started this train of thought of, like, that is weird, that is weird, that is weird, that is weird. Because for so long, I blamed myself for the demise of him and I's friendship. But there was so many times throughout the whole dynamic where he would block me. Like, if I didn't text him back fast enough, as a child, he would block me. And then he would block my parents. And then the next day in school, the next day in church, he would come up to them and be like, oh, I don't know what happened. I don't know. So sorry. Really weird. Why are you using your power to control people? Weird. Really weird. Why are you using the love of God to cover up your goals? Weird. Really fucking weird. Ugh. And then, okay, so the therapist thing happened. Then I was traveling around with some friends back in the day, and I was hanging out with someone who would have been, okay, I used to babysit someone. At the time, she was like 16. And I knew this guy who was like 38, 39. And that's kind of the difference me and this youth director had. So, as an adult woman, looking at this dynamic and thinking, this girl I used to babysit, hanging out alone with this older man, weird. Weird. So that's really when it really started to hit me, where I was like, I wouldn't want her alone on her birthday at this man's apartment getting gifts from every single place they've ever gone. It really hit me. So like, it's a very like confusing thing in my head that I'm still working through. Of like, now who am I? I think I've always just kind of been myself, and other people can like see that, and maybe they want a piece of that, maybe they whatever, so they choose to manipulate me instead of just like asking me for help. They try to like hurt me. That's what it feels like, at least in this context of reevaluating all the times I've been manipulated or abused in some way for other people's personal gain, whether that be they want to make me hurt to make themselves feel better, or they want to try to take a piece of my light for themselves. I don't know what it is. So really, I've been very powerful this whole time, and people have manipulated that in me. And why do people do that? It's really spun me down that rabbit hole. Where was I going with this statement, though? I think grooming is so hard to talk about because nobody talks about it, because that's what a lot of people in power on all fronts are using. And it doesn't mean that at the end of the day, these people are going to be sexually abused. But I'm not a therapist. But I know that grooming is the pre-act of abusing, of exploiting someone. So whether that be for their own personal gain, whether that be he wanted me to stay in this town forever and ever and work at the church and never leave and make sure the church was the whatever it was, or whether he wanted to date me, I don't know. I don't really think it was this one, but like people say that's the whole point, is they try to manipulate you so bad that you don't even. So I don't know. All I know that it was wrong. As an adult, you are the one in power. You're the one that needs to have more emotional regulation. You're the one that has to lead with love, not with control. There were plenty of times as a wee 15-year-old, 16-year-old, he would block me. Like, I would not literally run, but I would walk into his office and be like, what the fuck is wrong with you? And again, now in hindsight, I'm like, that's exactly what he wanted. I was a child, you know? So, okay, I had a big reaction. Why is he blocking me? Because I didn't come to church one time. Because I didn't text him back one time. Because whatever. It feels hard to validate the abuse of it, because it all seems so like, whatever, when you're not really realizing the depth of what all of this really means. I just think about all of the reasons as to why he would think he could abuse and control people, and it all leans back to the idea of children are vulnerable. People who show up at churches are also typically pretty vulnerable. They're looking for meaning, they're looking for purpose, they're looking for community. So it's very easy for people in these positions to use and abuse the people in their systems. So he groomed not only me, but everybody at that church, probably including his current wife. And that's really sad. Like, it's really sad. And I like to believe that there is good in everyone. sometimes moments like this make it a little bit more difficult because I don't understand the intention. I don't understand why. I don't understand why people who are in so much pain can't get help. Why they think that the only way to get what they want is to hurt other people. It's very confusing. I try now to remove him from the storyline, like in my head of the past, because all in all, that church was one of the greatest things that ever happened to me because of all the deep friendships that I made there. And it feels, frustrating because it's like, oh, he brought us all together. It's like, no, God brought us all together in hindsight. The love of, searching for more, searching for answers, searching for hope, like that actually brought us together. He was just there. I think about like me as a youth and I'm like, I always felt sneaky because I was a youth. I was a teenager. I was sneaking out. I was being silly. I was being a teenager, having fun, being a teenager, naive, reckless, I was doing that, and I still do that. I will forever be someone who's adventurous, who doesn't like to follow rules, etc., etc. But that does not give anybody an excuse to manipulate or control me in any way. Now I'm learning that. I just hope me sharing this story in the ways I'm sharing it is helpful in some way, because this does feel like a bigger thing than just me and my story. I think there are lots of stories out there like this that people don't share because they don't know what it is, and they just think there's something wrong with them, or they think they did something wrong, or they think nobody will believe them, or that they're being too much, or they're being crazy, or they're being dramatic, or whatever. You're not. Your truth is your truth. Not really sure what else to say. So, Danielle out.